My twin stole my identity, my parents helped him, and my lawyer made them all regret it. I always thought having a twin was supposed to be special. You know, the kind of bond people envy, the finish each other's sentences kind, not the ruin each other's credit score kind. My twin brother, Dylan, and I were born 3 minutes apart. He got the first breath, I got the better sense. Growing up, we were the double trouble twins. Same teachers, same friend groups, same clothes, thanks, Mom, but completely different people. Dylan was charming, reckless, and allergic to responsibility. I was the quieter one, the one who'd fix the things he broke. It turns out that pattern would repeat itself on a much bigger scale. Last year, I applied for a home loan. Nothing fancy, just a modest 2-bedroom place on the edge of town. I'd been saving for years, building good credit, paying off my student loans. I was proud of how careful I'd been. So when the loan officer looked at my report and frowned, I thought it was just a typo. "Mr. Carter," she said gently, "there are several outstanding accounts under your name. Some in collections." I laughed. "You must have the wrong Carter." She slid the printout across the desk like it was a death certificate. 5 credit cards, a car lease, a store financing plan for a $3,000 gaming laptop I'd never touched, and 2 personal loans totaling almost $40,000. All in my name, all using my social security number. I went home that day and signed up for every credit monitoring service I could find. When the full report came in, I nearly threw up. Someone had been living as me for years. The accounts went back nearly 5 years. Payments made from addresses I didn't recognize. Purchases that didn't even sound like me. Designer sneakers, custom rims, expensive liquor deliveries. The most recent one, a car registered just 3 towns over, under my name. I started calling the companies one by one. Each rep asked me the same thing. "Did you authorize this account?" Each time, I said no. Each time, they told me the same thing. The identity information matched perfectly. Name, birthday, social security number. And then one rep said something that made the hair on my arms stand up. "Oh yes, you even called us last month about updating your address. Remember, you moved to Pine Ridge." I didn't. But my twin brother, Dylan, lived on Pine Ridge Drive. It hit me like ice water. My own twin had used my identity. It explains so much. Why he always had new gadgets, new shoes, new excuses. Why he could quit jobs and somehow still afford rent. Why Mom kept saying, "You should help Dylan out more. He's struggling." He wasn't struggling. He was spending my money. I didn't call him right away. I spent 2 sleepless nights printing statements, highlighting transactions, compiling a folder thicker than a college thesis. I needed proof before confronting anyone, because in my family, the truth was only as good as your evidence. When I finally drove to my parents' house, Dylan's car, my car, was in the driveway. He greeted me with his usual smirk. "Hey bro, you look tense. Mortgage people giving you trouble?" It was like he knew. I threw the folder on the table. "Yeah, you want to explain why my name is on a car loan you're driving?" He froze for half a second, then grinned. "Oh that. It's just paperwork, man. We're twins, no big deal." No big deal. The words snapped something inside me. "You stole my identity. That's a felony." He rolled his eyes. "Don't be dramatic. I'll pay it off eventually. You've got better credit than me. It was just easier." Our mom came in from the kitchen at that exact moment, hearing the raised voices. "What's going on?" I told her. Everything. About the credit cards, the loans, the car, the fraud. She looked from me to Dylan, and then, unbelievably, she sighed and said, "Sweetheart, you're twins. What's yours is his." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. My dad came in, siding with her immediately. "You're overreacting," he said. "He's your brother. You're practically the same person. This is just family helping family." I stood there stunned. "You think identity theft is helping?" They exchanged that look, the one parents give each other when they've already decided you're being unreasonable. Then Mom said something that made my blood run cold. "We co-signed some of those first accounts years ago, remember? It's not just Dylan. It's family credit." Family credit. I realized, in that moment, this wasn't just Dylan. My parents had been part of it. Maybe even the ones who started it. When we were younger, Dad had handled all our paperwork. Tax stuff. Financial aid. Opening starter accounts. They must have opened something in my name and kept using it long after I'd gone off to college. That's why Dylan's luck never ran out. They'd built an entire network of credit under my name, and when I left home, they kept milking it. I left that house shaking. Not angry. Not yet. Just numb. I called my friend, a paralegal, who told me exactly what to do. Document everything. File a police report. Freeze my credit. So I did. I created a massive binder. Every fraudulent charge, every false address, every correspondence with a bank. I even printed screenshots of my mother's texts trying to guilt me. We're family. Don't destroy your brother's life over money. Over money? This wasn't money. This was my identity. Within a week, I filed a formal identity theft report with the police and the FTC. And when the detective asked if I suspected anyone, I said, yes, my twin brother and my parents. The look on his face said it all. He'd heard crazy things before, but not this. Dylan called me the next day, furious. You called the cops on me? You're really doing this? Yes, I said flatly. You committed a crime. He laughed like it was a game. They won't touch me. You can't prove anything. Oh, but I could. I had every document, every transaction, even a call recording where he referred to my brother's credit. When the detective followed up, the evidence spoke for itself. A week later, they raided my parents' house. And that's when the full extent of it came out. My parents hadn't just looked the other way. They'd helped him open new lines under my name. They'd been using my credit for years to get better loan rates, household purchases, even a second mortgage. The police confiscated computers and mail. My dad tried to call me, but I let it go to voicemail. He left a message that said, "You're destroying this family." I wanted to scream. They'd already destroyed it. I was just the one cleaning up the ashes. When the investigator suggested I get representation, I found her. Mara Holt, a sharp-tongued fraud attorney with a resting smirk and the patience of a saint. At our first meeting, she flipped through my binder like it was light reading and said, "Well, Mr. Carter, your family committed enough financial crimes to qualify as a small business." I laughed for the first time in weeks. Mara helped me file formal charges, block future access, and initiate a credit restoration case. She also warned me, they're going to try to guilt you, maybe even countersue. Don't flinch. She was right. My parents sent a letter, handwritten, dripping with manipulation, begging me to drop it for the sake of the family. Dylan texted, "You're really going to send your brother to jail?" My reply, "You did that yourself." As of this first post, the case is active. The investigation has expanded beyond Dylan. The authorities found documents suggesting my parents used my tax info to claim benefits. The fallout is going to be nuclear. But here's what I've learned so far. Family doesn't mean loyalty. Blood can't wash away fraud. And if your lawyer ever smirks during a meeting, it probably means someone else's world is about to burn. Mara told me, "You've got a strong case. They'll regret ever thinking of you as the quiet twin." I believe her. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not the one cleaning up their mess. Update 1. The investigation and revenge. If the first post was about betrayal, this one is about control. Because after years of my family using me like an open credit line, I finally had the power, and I intended to use every bit of it. The clone conspirators. That's what my lawyer, Mara Holt, started calling them, my parents and my twin brother. She said it like she was naming a B-list heist movie. We've got the clone conspirators. Mom the enabler, Dad the paper pusher, and Dylan the dumb one. She had a knack for nicknames. It helped me laugh when I wanted to cry. By then, the investigation was in full swing. Creditors were cooperating. Law enforcement had frozen several suspicious accounts. My credit report was an active crime scene. Mara was a machine. She filed subpoenas like most people send emails. Every time a new document came in, she'd pour herself coffee, skim it, and mutter, "Idiots. Lazy, predictable idiots." I started keeping a journal, not just for evidence, but to remind myself that this was real. Because there's something surreal about discovering your parents have been using you as a financial puppet. You start to doubt your memories, every birthday gift, every favor, wondering if it was paid for with your own name. Mara liked to call it a forensic financial reconstruction. I called it the fraud autopsy. Together with investigators, we mapped out every account, tracing them to addresses, payments, and signatures. And that's when the full horror came into focus. The first fraudulent account was opened when I was 17, technically still under my parents' guardianship. The first car lease was signed using a joint application that my father forged. 2 of Dylan's loans listed my mother as a co-signer, but used my social security number. One even had my old driver's license scanned and attached. Every trail circled back to one place, my parents' home address. Mara looked at me across the table one afternoon, papers fanned out like a crime novel. They didn't just help him, she said. They orchestrated this. I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. Grief because it confirmed what I feared. Relief because now I knew I wasn't crazy. Detectives started interviewing them one by one. I didn't have to be there, but Mara got transcripts. Apparently, my mother started crying almost immediately, saying, "We were just trying to help both boys succeed." My father stayed stone-faced, claiming it was a misunderstanding. And Dylan? He laughed. "We're twins," he told the detective. "It's basically the same person on paper." That line would come back to haunt him. When the detective read it to Mara, she nearly choked on her coffee. "That's your defense? We're basically the same person? Congratulations, that's an admission of identity theft." While the investigation rolled on, I focused on rebuilding. I worked with credit bureaus, lenders, and banks to remove fraudulent accounts. Mara wrote letters that could peel paint off a wall, professionally worded, but dripping with venom. "If your institution fails to remove this fraudulent mark within 30 days, we will pursue damages for negligence." One company called me personally to apologize after receiving her email. And since I couldn't resist a little pettiness, I started sending Dylan's debt collectors his actual phone number and address every time they called me. It was childish, sure, but after what he'd done, hearing him complain about harassment was pure music. The first hearing was about the identity theft charges against Dylan. Mara told me I didn't have to go, but I did anyway. I wanted him to see me, the person whose life he'd hijacked. He looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but in presence. No charm, no swagger. Just a man caught in the gravity of his own stupidity. His defense attorney tried to argue that it was a family misunderstanding. Mara stood up, immaculate in her gray suit, and said, "A misunderstanding does not involve 5 credit cards, 2 personal loans, a fraudulent car lease, and 3 forged signatures. That's not confusion, Your Honor. That's a pattern." The judge nodded like he was trying not to smirk. When we left the courthouse, Mara grinned. Round 1 to the quiet twin. After that hearing, my parents' masks started to slip. They tried to play both sides, telling the court they didn't know about Dylan's fraud, while simultaneously begging me to drop the charges for the sake of the family. When that didn't work, they went nuclear. Suddenly, I was the villain, the ungrateful son, the cold-hearted brother. Mom called me one night, sobbing. "We just wanted you both to have a good life. Dylan struggled. You didn't. You could afford to help." "I didn't help," I said. "You stole from me." She didn't respond, just hung up. It hurt more than I expected, not because I missed her, but because I finally saw the truth. They didn't see me as a son. They saw me as an asset. If it weren't for Mara, I probably would have cracked. One night after a particularly brutal day, creditors, family calls, emotional exhaustion, I sat in her office, hands shaking. She poured me tea like she'd done this 1,000 times. "You're doing everything right," she said. "They're hoping you'll feel guilty enough to back down. Don't. Guilt is their favorite currency. Stop paying it." Then she added, deadpan, "Also, your dad's fake signature looks like a drunk spider. We'll destroy him with handwriting analysis." I burst out laughing. It broke the tension like a hammer. That's the thing about Mara. She knew when to fight and when to make you laugh through the smoke. Once the criminal case was underway, Mara recommended we go after them civilly. Restitution wasn't enough. I'd lost years of financial stability and emotional peace. She wanted damages, and she wanted them big. "If you're going to burn a bridge," she said, "you might as well light fireworks on it." We filed a civil suit against all 3, my parents and Dylan, for fraud, emotional distress, and unauthorized use of personal information. They tried to countersue for defamation. Mara's response was a single-sentence filing. "Truth is an absolute defense." The court dismissed their claim in less than 5 minutes. Somewhere along the line, a local reporter caught wind of the story. "Man exposes family identity theft ring." I hadn't planned on publicity, but I didn't mind. Mara made sure my personal details were protected, but the rest? Fair game. The headline spread faster than I expected. Suddenly, my family's private matter was everyone's cautionary tale. Dylan quit social media. My parents' friends stopped answering their calls. Mara sent me a text that night. "Congratulations. Public humiliation, free of charge. During the discovery phase of the civil case, Mara uncovered something I'll never forget. Among my parents' old tax files, investigators found my name listed as a dependent for years after I'd moved out. They'd been claiming me and my identity theft as part of their taxes. Mara's reaction was priceless. "Oh my God," she said, half laughing, half aghast. "They literally monetized you. You were their side hustle." I sat there stunned, then laughed until I cried. That discovery shifted everything. It meant they hadn't just enabled Dylan, they'd profited directly, which made their criminal liability exponentially worse. When the prosecution added tax fraud to the list, Mara toasted me with her coffee mug. "To poetic justice. May it be loud and well documented." The pressure finally cracked Dylan first. Facing possible jail time and cut off from my parents' financial help, he folded. He called Mara's office asking if we'd consider a deal. Mara told him, "You're not negotiating with me. You're negotiating with the man whose life you stole." Eventually, he accepted a plea: restitution, probation, and mandatory financial counseling. It wasn't as satisfying as handcuffs, but it was justice, and I knew his credit would be radioactive for years. When the deal was finalized, Mara smirked. "Congratulations," she said. "He's legally forbidden from using a credit card. You've reduced your brother to a cash-only lifestyle." Honestly, that was poetic. My parents held out longer, convinced they could talk their way out. But when their own financial records came under scrutiny, everything unraveled. The tax fraud alone was enough to ruin them. Add in evidence of aiding and abetting identity theft, and their lawyers started sweating through his collar. They eventually took a plea deal too: fines, probation, restitution, and permanent loss of credit privileges. Their retirement plans? Gone. Their reputation in the community? Atomized. Mara called it a full-service collapse. "They wanted to treat you like an investment," she said. Well, they just hit bankruptcy. The final irony came months later. The original home I'd tried to buy, the one I was denied because of the fraudulent credit, came back on the market. The owner had to relocate quickly for work and drop the price. My credit was finally clean. Mara helped me finalize the mortgage paperwork personally, just to make sure no ghost signatures appeared. When the approval came through, she texted, "Loan approved. Family disowned. All is right with the universe." I stood in that empty house, holding the keys, feeling something between victory and disbelief. For the first time in years, I was standing in something that was mine. Not stolen, not shared, not family credit, just mine. Post-trial epilogue. The civil suit ended exactly as Mara predicted, in my favor. Between restitution, damages, and tax reimbursements, I recovered more than I ever expected. But the best part wasn't the money. It was watching Mara hand them the final settlement check, then arch an eyebrow and say, "You'll want to cash that quickly. His bank actually has funds." She lived for moments like that. Dylan moved out of state. Rumor has it he's working under a new name, ironically at a credit repair company. My parents live quietly, avoiding neighbors. Last I heard, they sold the family home to pay off fines. I own my house, free and clear. My credit score's higher than ever. And Mara? She's now on retainer. Because if life has taught me anything, it's that having a savage lawyer is better than having family. Sometimes I still get messages from my mother. Long, guilt-soaked paragraphs about forgiveness, family, and the bond between twins. I don't reply. I forward them to a folder labeled Evidence of Emotional Manipulation, because old habits die hard. The last time we met for coffee after closing the case, I thanked her. "I couldn't have done this without you." She smirked. "You could have. You just needed permission to stop being the responsible twin." Then she leaned back and added one final gem. "Next time someone says blood is thicker than water, remind them, so is oil, and look what happens when that leaks." Update 2. The nuclear fallout. When the dust settled, I thought it was over. The police were done. The court cases were over. The debt was cleared. But when you drop a nuclear bomb on your family's carefully constructed lies, the fallout doesn't stop when the explosion ends. It lingers, radioactive and glowing, in every corner of your life. After the final judgment, the calls stopped. No more threats. No more crying voicemails. Just silence. It was both peaceful and eerie. For 30 years, my family had been the background noise of my life. Loud, demanding, impossible to ignore. Now, it was just me, the hum of my refrigerator, and the occasional text from Mara. Reminder: don't respond to emotional blackmail disguised as reconciliation. She sent that after my mom left a single-line voicemail. You've made your point. Come home. There's something about narcissists that fascinates me. They can burn your world down and still think you owe them closure. Apparently, the story traveled faster than wildfire. My parents' financial situation became the town's favorite scandal. They'd always presented themselves as the model suburban couple, church fundraisers, PTA veterans, smug smiles at barbecues. And then suddenly, the whispers started. Did you hear they stole their own son's identity? Can you imagine? They're twin sons. I thought he was exaggerating until the news picked it up. They tried to move on, but the damage was permanent. My dad resigned from his local board position. My mom stopped volunteering. When they sold the house, Mara forwarded me the real estate listing with the caption. And the property includes lies, regret, and a slightly haunted energy. I told her she should go into marketing. It took months, but eventually, every fraudulent account disappeared from my credit reports. I got a letter from the FTC confirming the identity theft case was officially closed. That letter is framed in my hallway now, not out of vanity, but as a reminder that I survived. There's something sacred about reclaiming your own name after it's been abused. Every time I sign a document, every time I use my card, I get this tiny spark of pride. It's mine, no one else's. I even started using a password system so complicated it could probably launch a satellite. Paranoid? Maybe. But after living as an unwilling financial doppelganger, paranoia feels like self-care. 6 months after the case closed, I got an email. Subject line: please read, from Mom. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was long, rambling, alternating between guilt, justification, and self-pity. We never meant to hurt you. We just wanted to help Dylan. You're both our sons. You're both a part of us. Families forgive. You have to forgive. I didn't reply, but I forwarded it to Mara, who wrote back almost instantly. If she wanted forgiveness, she should have applied for it before the indictment. That one went straight into my quote journal. Word eventually reached me, through a cousin, that Dylan had moved to another state. Apparently, he's living under his middle name, James, working part-time at a credit repair company. I laughed for 5 solid minutes when I heard that. The irony could have powered a small city. He tried to friend me on Facebook a few months later. His message said, "No hard feelings, bro. I get it now. We were raised wrong." I hovered over the block button for a few seconds, then hit it. Because forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. And I don't owe him the privilege of proximity. Even though I'd already won the civil case, Mara found another way to twist the knife. When my parents tried to claim bankruptcy to escape paying damages, she filed an objection citing fraudulent intent. Her argument was savage. You cannot commit fraud and then declare bankruptcy to avoid responsibility for the fraud. That's not financial hardship. That's moral bankruptcy. The judge agreed. They were forced to sell off nearly everything of value, including the house, vehicles, and even a vacation fund my dad had hidden in a secondary account under my name. Mara discovered it during the asset search. He literally tried to hide money under your identity again, she said, almost laughing. Some people don't learn. That account alone covered nearly half my legal fees. I didn't just break even. I came out ahead. By this point, Mara had developed a small cult following in the local legal scene. Apparently, one of her paralegals had anonymously posted snippets of her courtroom quotes on Reddit, and people loved her. Things like, "My client isn't vindictive, he's thorough. Blood may be thicker than water, but contracts are thicker than both. If ignorance were a defense, we'd have to let toddlers file taxes." I showed her one of the posts, and she groaned. "Great. Now I'm a meme. Remind me to trademark my sarcasm. We still meet once a month for coffee. She refuses to let me pay. You've given me the best advertising I've ever had," she says. Besides, watching a con artist implode never gets old. There's a difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is loud. Justice is permanent. But I still allowed myself a few indulgences. I filed a request with the credit bureaus to mark my file as "do not open new accounts without direct verification." It's basically a padlock on my financial identity. And then, for the first time in my life, I changed my middle name. Legally. Permanently. Just one letter different from Dylan's. A symbolic break. It felt like cutting the last cord between us. When the judge approved it, Mara texted me. New name, who dis? Congratulations on being your own person. When I finally hosted my housewarming, almost a year to the day after the loan rejection, I invited my closest friends, Mara, and the detective who handled my case. We drank champagne in my living room, surrounded by the smell of new paint and closure. At one point, Mara raised her glass. To the man who proved that blood isn't thicker than evidence. Everyone laughed. I don't remember feeling that light in years. Later that night, after everyone left, I stood in the doorway looking at the house, my house, and realized something simple but profound. They may have stolen my name, but they never got my character. And that's the one asset you can't fake. A full year passed before I heard from them again. A letter arrived, handwritten, no return address, but unmistakably my father's handwriting. It said, "Your mother isn't well. We're struggling. We never meant for things to go this far. You've punished us enough. Please help." No, sorry. No, we were wrong. Just please help. I stared at it for a while, then folded it neatly and placed it in my file cabinet, right between tax fraud evidence 2018 to 2022 and emotional manipulation attempts. Then I took a deep breath and shredded it. Some things don't deserve space anymore. Somewhere along the line, someone reposted snippets of my story on Reddit. It hit the front page of r/pro-revenge. People cheering, quoting Mara, even making jokes about the clone conspirators. Someone commented, "This sounds like the plot of a Netflix show." Another said, "Opie's lawyer deserves her own series." I didn't post under my real name, of course, but reading the comments was cathartic. Strangers who understood. Who got it? Because sometimes internet strangers are more of a family than the people who raised you. 2 years after it all began, my credit is spotless. My finances are secure. My peace of mind, finally, is intact. Dylan never reached out again after the block. My parents moved to another state to start over. I let them. Starting over is something I did, too. I just didn't need to hurt anyone else to do it. I even started volunteering at a local financial literacy nonprofit, teaching people how to protect their identity and credit. It's funny, turning pain into prevention feels better than any revenge could. One woman came up to me after a session and said, "I think my sister's been using my SSN." I told her, "Document everything. Get help. You're not crazy." It was like talking to an earlier version of myself. Epilogue, the quiet twin no more. The last time I saw Mara, she handed me a small box. Inside was a keychain, a tiny brass scale engraved with 2 words, "Never again." For the man who turned his trauma into testimony, she said. I smiled, genuinely this time. "You know, you were right," I told her. "About what?" I didn't need permission to stop being the responsible twin. "No," she said, standing to leave. "You just needed a lawyer with better sarcasm." We both laughed. People always ask what it's like to go through something like this, to have your family betray you that completely. It's like dying and being reborn as a version of yourself that finally understands boundaries. It's losing everything you thought was unconditional and realizing the only thing that truly is your own self-respect. I used to think revenge would make me feel powerful, but what actually made me feel powerful was peace. Peace that wasn't borrowed, bought, or stolen, just earned. So yeah, my twins stole my identity. My parents profited from it. My lawyer destroyed them all with style. And me? I built a life so real, so honest, that not even they could fake it.